On this week's episode, we have CEO Carolyn Haeler. After a very serious celiac illness, she started the gluten-free company Mightylicious, where she has the farmers sign affidavits on their ingredients, down to what the chickens are eating where she sources her eggs. Suppliers of natural products also sign that their products are gluten-free, kosher, and non-GMO, down to the bacteria that's used to make the coconut yogurt. And her bestseller is a 100-year-old recipe. And now to our inspiring conversation with Carolyn. Hello and welcome to the podcast Eat Better Food Today. I'm your host, Ken Coonahan, and I'm excited to be sharing insights on why we believe that health and longevity begins with the food we eat. The goal of this podcast will be to inspire, educate, and enable folks to live a healthier life and do it affordably. My wife and I have been on this journey for over 11 years and continue to work on it every single day. Percent of the profits from this podcast will be put towards child hunger, with an initial focus on the poor suburban America, East Cleveland, Ohio. As a reminder, please subscribe to and rate this podcast. Subscriptions are the lifeblood for any podcast. Our sponsor is Cleveland Kitchen. Think of Cleveland Kitchen as providing easy gut health with their fermented foods, which means better brain health with just 2 forkfuls a day. On this episode, we're grateful to have Carolyn Haeler. Carolyn is the creator and founder of Mightylicious gluten-free cookies and a few other products as well we'll talk about. Today, Mightylicious is sold in 43 states and is still operated solely by Carolyn. She is a lifelong foodie, as am I, whose love language has always been baking. I'm not a big baking person. My wife is. I am more of the savory. In 2012, at the age of 31, she was diagnosed with celiac disease, a diagnosis that would change her life for better and for worse. Welcome, Carolyn.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So my first question is always about, I get quite a range of answers here, but lately I've been getting some pretty good, healthy answers, I'll say. So first question is, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
What did I have for breakfast this morning? I had gluten-free pretzels. I have 2 little kids. I have a 3.5-year-old and a 1-year-old. Avery will be 1 on June 7th. So breakfast is usually around noon. So we haven't gotten there yet. So I grabbed some gluten-free pretzels this morning.
Any coffee, tea?
I had some coffee.
Okay. So you've had an interesting journey. So you've been corporate America, and now you've got your own organization. So maybe kind of share the journey that you've been on here over the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, so I started like a lot of people, graduated from college, and then I got a job for IBM, which is a major employer in the US. I was a consultant, did that for 4 years, supply chain and operations for the Department of Defense as a public sector consultant, went to graduate school, and focused on finance, graduated in 2010 from business school and started working for a bank. So very, very corporate. I eventually became a stockbroker and did that for about a decade. I graduated from 2010, moved to New York City, and in 2011, I started noticing symptoms I never had before. And I would say that my whole life I've been a pretty healthy eater. I love salad. Like, I genuinely love salad. I love fruit. I love fish. That doesn't mean I don't partake in naughty things. I also love Doritos and Cheetos. But on average, I love yogurt and salad and fish and things like that. I've always been that way. I've always been very active. But I started noticing strange symptoms. I just started getting a lot of indigestion, which is a symptom I've never really had before. So it was something that I didn't notice when it started happening. Over the course of about 9 months, my immune system started failing. My skin turned gray. My hair was falling out. My stomach wasn't just bloated. I was distended, painfully distended. I was sick all the time. I had, aches everywhere. And I'd been going to the doctor and working with different specialists, and they'd done the tests for gluten and dairy and all the different things that you could potentially be sensitive to. And they all came back negative. And I got to the point where my gastroenterologist looked at me and he goes, "Maybe you have HIV." And I was like, wow, Me? You should have tested for that 9 months ago when I started feeling ill. And that is, imagine just the crescendo of thoughts that start running through your head
Hmm.
when someone says that to you. When you are not feeling well and your stomach is distended and your hair is falling out, you're not exactly socializing a lot. So you start
Not
having
at
this
all.
like panic, yeah, panic about how long have I had this for. And so I finally, they did a colonoscopy and endoscopy and they found the antibodies in my colon for celiac disease. And so I was rather relieved. I got that diagnosis about 2 days before Thanksgiving in 2012, and I was very relieved. I was like, great, so as opposed to HIV, I just can't eat cake and pasta and bread. Great, okay. At that time I did not realize the gravity that that diagnosis was going to have on my life. And by that I mean gluten is in everything.
It
Like
isn't everything.
when you think about gluten, you think about pasta and bread and cake and brownies and cupcakes and all those things. But gluten is actually used as a filler, a preservative, and a coloring. So it's in caramel color, which means I can't have Diet Coke, I can't have Pepsi Cola, I can't even have a lot of ginger ale
Hmm.
brands. And caramel color isn't just used in beverages, it's used in almost everything that's manufactured. Gluten is what gives caramel color the caramel color. So it's very often added to foods to give the foods that dark color that we associate with something being baked and being done, because during the manufacturing process, think that Maillard process that creates the color might not actually occur. So they
Hmm.
add caramel color to make it look done, quote unquote. It also is a filler. So I actually was, I'd already was living gluten free, but I was sprinkling cinnamon on my cappuccino in the morning, and it was the Kirkland brand cinnamon, and I was reacting to it because they use, in many spices, they use gluten as a filler. So even though the ingredients say cinnamon period, there still can be trace amounts of gluten in there, and I react to trace amounts of gluten in 180 seconds. It also can be in things like, it's sneaky, where it can be in things like turkey and ham and like cold cuts, because they use it as a preservative. So even things that like, you're like, what is salt and flavor seasoning and ham might have gluten in it. Things like, I can have a California roll because they put gluten in imitation crab. Soy sauce is fermented with gluten. So
Hmm.
I have to have a special kind of soy sauce. And soy sauce is also a sneaky ingredient because lots of chefs use it in replace of salt because it has that sort of umami complex flavor. So
Hmm.
even things that aren't Asian foods might have soy sauce in it because it's something that the chef is trying. So it just becomes this huge, like, eating on a day-to-day basis for me every single day, even, now over 10 years later, it's a fun puzzle. Let's call it that. It's a puzzle. You also start to realize how we've built into foods convenience. Like, I can no longer grab a bagel or muffin for breakfast. Even taking a sandwich for lunch is challenging because while you can make a gluten-free sandwich, the bread is often based in rice, and if you take it, the wetter it gets, the more it disintegrates. It completely sort of turns into mush, and you can't even hold it. So even like preparing a sandwich to take to work doesn't even work that well. So now I'm like, you're limited to things like grab and go as a banana or an apple, pretzels in the morning. Lunch is frequently salads, so that hasn't changed that much. But then, when I go out to eat at a restaurant, I often order first, even while everyone is still reading the menu. I'll order first because if they do have a gluten-free kitchen, they sort of have to start the pasta water from scratch. Most kitchens have water that's boiling and they're making your pasta in the same water that
Hmm.
they've been using. So they have to start from scratch in a separate kitchen. So my meal often takes 45 minutes to prep, where everyone else will take 15 to 20. So I will often try to order first before everyone else has even decided, so that our meals sort of come out at the same time. Things
Hmm.
like that I got to take for granted for 31 years. They now impact me dramatically, but it does allow me to sort of be in control of my health and to heal my body. And when I did get the diagnosis, I was like, all right, well, I've already tried the gluten elimination diet. I'm only going to eat things that like either came off a tree or a plant, or like I saw it cut off the animal, right? It went from the animal to my plate. And within 48 hours, like, my skin turned pink again, my energy levels rebounded dramatically, the bloating didn't go away completely, but it was far improved. It was like almost immediate that my body started to feel better,
Wow.
to feel myself. It did take months, if not years, before I was fully sort of recovered because, unlike allergy, celiac disease, it is an autoimmune disease where I create antibodies that attack my colon. And so a lot of that is actually permanent, where I there's little fibers in your colon called celiac, which is where celiac disease come from, and they actually absorb the nutrition from your foods, which is why I was turning gray. Because even though I was eating things that didn't have gluten in them, obviously my body was unable to absorb the nutrition. And I create antibodies that attack those celiac and destroy them.
Hmm.
So if I do eat gluten, it's not just the symptoms that are impacting me; it's the long-term damage I'm doing to my digestive system. So
Well,
it is significant when someone tells you they have celiac disease. It's not just like, yes, I feel uncomfortable, I get bloating, I get pain, I get nauseous, but it's the long-term impact to
yeah.
my overall. It's not just my digestive system. Your digestive system is your immune system. So it's not only impacting my digestive system; it's ultimately impacting my ability to fight off infection and to heal myself.
Hmm. How about like fermented foods? I mean, is there gluten in for it? Because you just brought up a lot of stuff I didn't know had gluten in it.
That's why I list all those things. A lot of
Yeah.
people are shocked. Ginger ale. I just learned that. I look like I don't drink soda a lot, like, but when I'm not feeling well, which is when you have indigestion from celiac disease, you get ginger ale. And I was like, oh my God, this has caramel color in it. I thought the bottle was just green. Like, I can't believe that one slipped by me. Yeah, it's shocking. Fermented foods, it depends on what's added. I love fermented foods. They're really great for you. Sauerkraut,
Mhm.
anything that is sour. I didn't start off. I do love baking, but I am more of a savory person, which is why some of the flavors in my cookies are a little bit salty and sweet, because I really prefer
Mhm.
something that's a little more complex. And my wife is someone who has a sweet tooth. She'll eat a whole pint of Ben and Jerry's. I can have like 3 bites, and then that's enough sugar for me. I enjoy it while I'm having it, but I can only have so much of it. It is shocking when you think about how gluten is used, and I've even worked with manufacturers. Like vanilla we use all natural vanilla, or in our cookies. There was a point in time when you couldn't get vanilla because there was a drought where the vanilla beans grow, and so vanilla was very, very hard to find. So we had to use natural vanilla flavoring, which has vanilla in it. It just has other things as well. And a co-man of mine was like, "We'll just use vanilla. It's really cheap and it tastes great." I was like, "Yeah, that has caramel color in it. We're not using vanilla." We even we use apple cider in our cookies. It helps with the leavening process. And I was at the factory one day, and they were like, "We're using apple cider," and I was like, "Can I look at it?" Because they were like, apple cider is a fermented product. It's
Mhm.
just apples, fermented apples. It had caramel color in it. I was like, you cannot use this. I was like, I have to, like, I source everything. That isn't like grade A butter. That's something that my co-man sources. But like, I was like, we have to use organic apple cider, because otherwise
Mhm.
it could have gluten in
Yeah.
it. It's crazy. You would never think that apple cider vinegar like would have gluten in it, but it did. It's unbelievable how many things it can be. And you have basically, unless it has the certification in front that says gluten free, you have to read the label.
Yeah, and I mean, everything you're saying is in a lot. I mean, because obviously we talk a lot about food in the show, but just eating whole ingredients, it sounds like you were already eating pretty healthy before
Yeah,
this happened. But there's
yeah,
still, even like you talked about the soy sauce, wasabi would be a substitute that's
yeah,
gluten free.
yeah.
But then just other, like we just drink sparkling water at home. We don't even bother with
We
sodas.
do too. I mean, I'm
Then
obsessed. My daughter refers to sparkling water as a Mimi agua because I'm Mimi. It's mommy's water. So at restaurant, she'll be like, "Can I have a Mimi agua, please?" And we'll be like, "She wants sparkling water."
you have to know the ingredients and you have to know what you're eating. And podcast I just released today, we talked a lot about knowing your farmer. It's getting back to basics because just a lot of fast foods and manufactured foods have things in them that you're not even, like you're describing, you're not even aware of.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do. It's not even the manufacturers necessarily like trying to do something, um, jaded, like sneaky. It's that when you think about it, in the 1950s and 1960s, we still had milkmen, right? And people
Mm-hmm.
were going to a butcher. Milk was being delivered daily. My great
Mm-hmm.
uncle was a milkman. That was his job, and people were having their groceries delivered to them. You would go to your local butcher on your way home from picking up the kids, because women weren't allowed to drive back then, or own cars. So they would be walking. Everything was within walking distance because women couldn't drive or own a vehicle. You would have a local butcher, you would have a local cheese shop, you would have a local grocer, and everything was coming relatively fresh. And then World War II happened, women had to go to work, and they invented refrigeration. And that changed really the food supply chain dramatically, because now, from going, you had a shelf life of maybe a week or even days for a lot of products. Now it's 9 months to 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of the things, like even though we use natural vanilla, we use vanilla extract. Natural vanilla flavoring to me is a superior product because it has a longer shelf life. So my end consumer is, and I know there's a lot of debate about natural flavoring. I just want everyone to know this: there is terrible, disgusting natural flavorings that are horrible for you, and then there are really great natural flavorings. Unfortunately, there's very hard for the consumer to know which one it is because it just
Yes.
says natural flavoring, right?
Right.
Organic, non-GMO, gluten-free natural flavoring. If you are, and this is how you know if the natural flavoring is good for you or not, is if the product is certified gluten-free, non-GMO, kosher, et cetera, and so on. The natural flavoring also has to be certified those things,
So
which
that's good.
means it's actually natural, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's in an Oreo, it's it could be
Probably not.
anything. Probably not. So that's how like when I have gluten-free, non-GMO, kosher certifications, I have to go all the way, not just to the distributor. Like I have a distributor who distributes lots of products to me. So I can buy butter, sugar, eggs, all from the same distributor. So when I get certified, they go all the way down to the actual like farm and request, what are you feeding your chickens?
Hmm.
And that has to be certified via an affidavit for
Nice.
all for all of
That's
my
great.
ingredients when you have those certifications, which is unbelievably laborious. Do you think that chicken farmers or egg farmers are like, I want to sign you can't, they're like, what? I'm not signing an affidavit. Like, it's unbelievably challenging to get these certifications if you have a lot of ingredients, and those ingredients some are more complex than others. Obviously, getting something that's certified vegan or non-GMO, and it's like, I don't know, rice. It's not actually that hard because rice should be non-GMO. But when you're talking about you're feeding to chickens, and there's multiple like farmers. When you're buying eggs, that one farm isn't supplying all the eggs. They're getting eggs from other places. So it's not just
Hmm.
that one farm was assigned the affidavit, it's all the farmers. So when foods do have those certifications and they use natural flavoring, that natural flavoring company has had to sign an affidavit stating
Hmm.
that is actually an all natural product, that it's non-GMO, that it's gluten-free, that it's kosher certified, and all of those things. Every
Hmm.
single ingredient has to abide by those standards.
Nice. Nice.
So that's
So
how you tell the difference, because I feel like there's a lot of fear mongering sometimes
there
about
is.
natural
Yes.
flavoring. I've heard some crazy things, and there are terrible natural flavorings that are not good for you and that are chemicals, but there's also really wonderful companies that do a great job creating a shelf stable natural flavoring.
So the affidavit is your requirement or the organic labeling
The
requirement?
certificate, in order to get that certification,
Okay.
they, depending on the product, sometimes, if the product I'm using, if the ingredient I'm using is certified non-GMO, I
Hmm.
just need to get the non-GMO certification because they've already done the affidavit. If it's an ingredient like a natural flavoring and they're not non-GMO certified, they have to provide an affidavit stating
Okay.
that their ingredients are
Gotcha.
non-GMO, if it's gluten-free, that they're gluten-free, all those types of things. And to the point where, like, what is that ingredient that we use? Like, we use xanthan gum in our cookies, and xanthan gum, there's some process where they sort of ferment the xanthan gum to get it to be, and we have to like certify that, oh, it's our yogurt. We use coconut yogurt in our cookies, and we have to certify that the bacteria used to make the yogurt are also non-GMO, et cetera, and so on. All of
Wow.
these things, yeah.
Wow.
All the byproducts and all the ingredients that go into making the product also have to. So
And do you
it's
source a lot of local things for your products? And
we source as locally as we can. I mean, I have to buy. I live in Manhattan, so there's not a lot of
well,
farm.
yeah, I mean, like state of New York, kind of local, yeah, or Pennsylvania.
Unfortunately, state of New York, we don't. In the state of New York, what do we make here? We make apple cider here. We source like all of our rice flour. We source from California because that's where rice is grown. You have to have
Hmm.
sort of big valleys and lots of access to water.
Well, and that's a grain, so I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy to transport and yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I don't know where our butter is sourced. The best butter is from Pennsylvania. The actual, like, where the cows and the grass and everything, it does impact the quality of the butter. So wherever, and it's also just cheaper because the further away you have to transport something, the more expensive it becomes. Our eggs are from, yeah, a New Jersey company. Because they're kosher certified. So we get access to a lot of the kosher things, or more of the East Coast
Mm,
companies. But I don't focus as much on like because I need to have access. So it's important to me, because I'm a relatively large company now, not only to have high quality ingredients, but they have to be sustainable. We've had so much supply chain volatility. Like
mhm.
our peanuts, we source from down south because that's where peanuts are grown. But the supplier needs to be big enough and stable enough that they're not going to go out of business. Say if we start getting rid of all the labor required to pick the peanuts. That happened in 2021, where the peanut factory shut down, the rice mill was shut down because there's no one to work.
Mm.
So I not only think about we want the highest quality, because the only way you're getting a cookie that tastes good is to have the highest quality eggs,
Yeah.
highest quality butter, the best rice we can find, but also to have a supplier who isn't going to go bankrupt or disappear or simply say have no product, because that has happened to me so many times.
Mhm.
It is a real fear in this new economy, in this new world that we're in.
Yeah. Yeah, the Cleveland Kitchen spots that I mentioned, they source their raw ingredients from basically Michigan down to Florida, depending on the
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
So,
So you have to
yeah.
have a supplier and then a backup supplier and then two more backup suppliers to your backup supplier.
Yeah. Need an operations degree, not just a financial degree for
Oh,
that.
absolutely. It's supply chain and operations is one of the biggest hurdles that I've had to deal with, which is why
Yeah.
my background as a public sector consultant actually came in really handy during COVID. I was like, I've dealt with this before. um, so yeah, we have I wanted to talk about a little bit about our sourcing of the rice flour, because it is one of our um, the most important ingredient, I would
Mhm.
say, in our cookie and in the quality of our ingredients. One of the things that I learned when I was creating my recipes was that not all gluten-free flours are created equal. In fact, they're not even trying to be created equal. If you buy different brands of gluten-free flours from the store, they have completely
Mhm.
different ingredients. And I discovered that they all will contain an ancient grain. Usually it's sorghum flour, but it can be amaranth flour, millet flour, tiger nut flour, buckwheat flour. Any of these ancient grains can be included in the rice in the flour blend. And I would like to say that there is a reason why these grains are ancient. I have nothing against ancient grains; they're great. I love quinoa. I love garbanzo beans. They're wonderful with chicken piccata. In a savory application, they're incredible. However, when you bake them, they get a acrid tar type flavor to them. And
Mhm.
if you think about it, a lot of the complaints people have about gluten-free products is they have strange bitter aftertastes. That's the ancient grain. Sorghum
Okay.
flour is the most often used because it has a higher protein content. It has almost as much protein as wheat flour, but it has the worst flavor. And then after you have that sort of weird bitter aftertaste, there's that grittiness, sort of chalky grittiness in
Mhm.
your mouth. And that's because rice flour in the US, and I buy rice flour by the metric ton, is milled for cooking, not for baking. And
Mhm.
so when you buy just rice flour, not in a blend, and you put your fingers in it and you feel it, it feels like sand. And if it looks like sand, it feels like sand, it tastes like sand, right? So when you're thinking about baking, you think about wheat flour or cornstarch, two very commonly used ingredients in baking. They're milled to a spec so that it feels like silk, like you run your fingers through it
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
powder, it's silky, it's soft, it's fluffy. And rice flour, literally, you could put it into like a sandbox and kids could play with it. That's how sandy it is. And so I learned very early on, I didn't want to include an ancient grain, which meant I had to be rice flour based, but rice flour is very gritty. So we actually work directly with a mill in California that mills our rice flour for us, so that it's milled to a spec, so that it's super fine and pillowy and soft and silky, so that you can bake with it, which means that my flour blend doesn't have any ancient grain in it.
Mm.
It's rice flour, it's cornstarch, potato starch, tapioca starch, xanthan gum. And so it has a really fluffy texture, a really soft texture. There's no grittiness to it. And it also doesn't have any aftertaste.
Mm.
So what you get is a completely neutral tasting
Mhm.
cookie, if that's what you're buying, or if you're using our flour blend, you can make a cake, a brownie, a pancake, and it just tastes like a cake or a cookie or a brownie. It doesn't taste like sorghum.
So can
um,
you, with celiacs, can you eat ancient grains, or is that, I
yeah,
mean,
so I cannot eat wheat, rye, or barley. Those are
okay,
all wheat
yep,
products. Those
yep,
are all wheat in the wheat family. But I can eat buckwheat, which is a nut. I can eat quinoa. I can eat garbanzo bean. I can eat all of those things. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay. So, in the US, I don't know what your stats are, but the stats I have is 2 million people have celiac disease,
Hmm.
and 12 million people are gluten intolerant, which is
Hmm.
not as severe as celiacs, but it's still, you got to watch, just like
A
you
big
have to
deal. Yeah.
watch what you
Hmm.
eat. So, what are some misconceptions about celiacs? And I've been living with it with my wife now for, 11 years. What would you say are some common misconceptions? Because you kind of discovered it, right?
Yep.
And then you've talked about the ingredients. So some of the misconceptions are just the products that you,
Can or can't eat. Yeah.
yeah, that you can't eat, that a lot of people probably still think they can eat.
I would say that the misconception I get is that people don't understand how serious celiac disease is. Like, there's a lot of
Hmm.
people who are gluten free now by choice. My wife is gluten free by choice. There are a lot of people who have gluten sensitivity. There are a lot of people who eat gluten free because of a variety of autoimmune diseases, anything from cancer to alopecia to anything that IBS, anything that causes inflammation.
Hmm.
Eating gluten free is going to help with that. So I feel like I get a lot of like eye rolls and people are really dismissive of celiac disease as if it's like a fad. It's, I want to tell you, for me, it's not a fad, and it is a very serious
Yeah.
autoimmune disease. I mean, I was basically dying. And if I did eat gluten on a daily basis and didn't take care of myself, I would die. It would kill me. And it would
Hmm.
be a very slow and painful death. It would be very, very unpleasant and very painful. And so I think that's the biggest misconception that I deal with, is that people think that like this is like a lifestyle choice that I've made because I want to. I want to eat cake.
Real cake.
Real cake. I want to eat things that taste good. And I didn't realize how important sort of food was from a sort of a cultural, like psychological, but also like spiritual level. Like, food is really important to us, not even just like obviously the satiation of eating food and the enjoyment of it, but also the ritual of certain foods are
Hmm.
really important. Things like I used to have a Diet Coke every day at 3 o'clock when I worked in finance. I was sort of like our mid after break time because we still had 5 more hours to work. So it was like our second coffee of the day. And it's something that was really important. Even things like, I don't drink a lot, but like having a cold beer on a hot summer day,
Hmm.
like little things like that are sort of celebratory, and like how you unwind and sort of like the punctuation points within like your summertime, things like that. I don't necessarily miss cake that much. It's not the things I thought I would miss. It's like things that are culturally and socially and psychologically relevant are the things that you start to miss.
Yeah.
And you realize how food is not that like we eat our feelings, but that food is a part of our culture and it's a part of our celebrations, part of our ritual, and all of those things are important to our mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of the way you grew up. Like everybody's got a custom based on how they grew up
Mm-hmm.
around food
Yep.
somehow. So,
Everyone doesn't even, if some cultures have a lot tremendous customs.
yeah,
Others it's just like even just having a Diet Coke at a certain time of the day, or like your morning coffee or morning tea. All of those things are very ritualistic for
yeah,
people.
yeah.
How we sort of manage our days and our emotions. And that was another thing about my brand when I made it. It was very intentional. Almost all of the products out on the market that were available when I was diagnosed, and even today, are created by parents for kids. So the person creating the product is not the person eating the product
Hmm.
on a daily basis. Like, I don't have a choice. There's no
Right,
choice for
right.
me to eat something. And so what I realized was that there was like a lot to be desired in those products. They weren't necessarily as satiating as they should be. They weren't as, rewarding as they should be, especially if it was something as like a cookie. And that's because the needs and the palates of children are very different from the needs and the palates of adults.
Yeah, yeah.
I My interest in eating a cookie is way different from my 3.5-year-old daughter, and what I will and won't eat is very different from my 3.5-year-old daughter. So I wanted to create a cookie brand and a gluten-free brand that was for adults by an adult who lives with this every day. And like, I wanted my cookies to taste like the cookies I remember eating that had gluten in them that I used to bake all the time and like remind me of my grandmother and all those comforting things, and
Hmm.
not me taking a bite into it and be like, oh man, feel so sorry for myself. And so that was really important to me. And a lot of my flavors are a little bit more elevated because of that. Like we have a brown butter chocolate chip, we have a brown butter shortbread. Our double chocolate cookie has a little bit of espresso in it to really give it that sort of dark chocolate flavor. So I really thought about what are the needs of adults and how do I make this palatable to an adult at the same time making it enjoyable and fun for kids. Our logo is a little white unicorn. Their name is Charlie, so we have a non-binary unicorn. He's super fun. He's sticking his tongue out. He's giving the peace sign because I wanted the packaging and our logo and our brand to be fun and exciting and to appeal to kids. And frankly, men love Charlie. They think he's fantastic. Like he's super fun. So appeal to everyone, and but also say like cookies are fun and eating is fun, because when you look at the packaging of a lot of the products on the market, it's very trite. It's,
Hmm.
an old man with a hat, or just like a white bag with some blue block letters that hasn't been updated since 1984. And so I really wanted my product to be, palatable for everyone, but also the branding and the messaging to be really fun and engaging for little kids, and so that they get a mascot, just like in the cereal aisle and a lot of kids products have sort of, these mascots that appeal to kids. I wanted my product to have that as well.
Nice, nice. So what do you think are emerging trends in this area? Because for example, in Cleveland here, there are restaurants now that we eat at because they make gluten-free entrees, desserts, I mean beyond
Mm-hmm,
salad.
mm-hmm.
So we're starting to see a lot more of that where I live. I don't know if you're seeing that where you live or nationally
Well,
or.
I live in Manhattan, so we've always been ahead of the curve. Like we've always had dedicated, like there's so many pizza places that are like really authentic Italian restaurants, and they have a tiny little pizza oven and they make fantastic, Italian style pizza, and they'll have gluten-free um, crust that I can order, and
Mhm.
that's amazing. And then we have dedicated gluten-free kosher vegan bakeries here. I am seeing that's always been here. I am getting a lot more interest from some of the markets that may be not ahead of the curve. I deal with retailers and buyers all across the U.S., and there's a lot more interest now in not only gluten-free but plant-based things that are certified, things that people can trust, where it's clean, but at the same time, like, well, I mean, millennials are starting to get older, and we grew up eating Cocoa Puffs. Millennials are demanding Cocoa Puffs that are better for you, right? So we want the nostalgia of the 80s and all the bad for you things, but with real ingredients that are simple and clean. I'm seeing that more and more people are, would rather have a better for you product, right?
Mhm.
Even Walmart's like, we want better for you products. Our consumers cares about their health. We want it for $2.99. Like that's not how that works.
I mean,
um,
Costco's in that same boat. They're actually funding regenerative farmers right now to
mhm.
grow better products for what they
Yep.
sell.
Yep. A lot of focus on sustainability, sustainable farming and practices. A lot of manufacturers really want, people are very concerned about the environment and packaging. And I would say that's sort of the Achilles heel, because it's very hard to be in a manufacturing and not produce a lot of waste and paper
Yeah,
and plastic.
yeah.
And then it is nearly impossible to have a shelf stable product without using plastic. And not many types of plastic are recyclable. So there's this huge gap in the industry.
Mm.
Whereas you've used paper is recyclable, but it's not shelf stable. It's not going to keep your product. Yeah, so it's something that, I would love, because I've attempted to buy like post consumer recycled packaging, and it's just the technology is not there yet. Certainly not
Mm.
in the US, and apparently we're, putting tariffs on the people who make the packaging and have all the machinery and expertise. But yeah, that's a huge opportunity within the supply chain, is figuring out how do we make plastic recyclable, because it's most of it is not.
Interesting. When I go to the gym every morning, and I've been listening to this woman. Her name is Bobby, or actually, her name is Laura Modi, and she
Mm-hmm.
makes a product called Bobby. It's baby formula.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're. So
I
she's
know
got a very.
I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
Okay, so she's got a very interesting story. I mean, it's not like you start a company like you did and it's just like everything's all roses and you're making a lot of money and there's no issues, no challenges. So I guess my question for you is, because she faced a lot of challenges breaking into the baby
Oh no,
formula.
I face challenges every day. No, absolutely.
So I guess that's my question is, what are
Yeah.
some of the biggest challenges that you faced
Yeah,
getting
everything.
started?
Everything is the biggest challenge. When you start your company, you make this great product, you go into the retailers and they go, "Great, I love it. Do you have any distributors?" And you're like, "No, I don't have any distributors." So then you're like, "Go to the distributors." And you're like, "I make this great product." And they're like, "Great, do you have any retailers?" I am not kidding. And you go through this like chicken and
Wow.
egg for years.
Mm.
For years. Because in order to get into a distributor, you need a big customer, and that's called an anchor account. In order
Hmm.
to get an anchor account, you need a big distributor. So when I started selling my cookies, I was distributing them myself. I was hiring. I was making them by hand at a commercial facility in Queens, and Whole Foods said, "We'll put you in 3 locations in Manhattan." And my team, which was just a girl and a guy like in high school, would put my cookies in the back of their sedan and deliver them on Sunday to Whole Foods. So that was, interesting until I finally got big enough. I expanded within Whole Foods where I finally got, and then you have to be big enough to get a manufacturer. So I was making everything by hand on the weekends myself. And then I got big enough where I could no longer physically do that. I didn't, it just wasn't feasible, but not big enough where a co-packer would take me, because a co-packer is like, "How many truckloads of cookies?" And I was like, I'm buying pallets of cookies. They're like, "Call me when you need 3 truckloads." So then you have to find a middle-size co-packer who's willing to take you on because they believe in you, but are willing to do smaller production run for you,
Hmm.
who is competent, because most of the people who do that are doing it because they're going out of business and they desperately need cash.
Uh, Interesting.
So then I went through like 4 or 5 co-packers till I found one that was competent. Then you start, dealing with the supply chain issues, and now you're big enough where you're being impacted by things like droughts at the equator because there's no vanilla, and then you have COVID and there's no one to pick the peanuts. I mean, I describe being an entrepreneur as being kicked in the face every single day. Every day you get up and you are kicked in the face.
Mm.
Is not for, I mean, it is not for the weak. There's, when I was, even the very beginning, I wasn't working. I just started this company. I was putting a lot of money into it. I didn't have to like mortgage my home or anything, but I put a lot of money in it. So I couldn't even afford a cab, and it was raining, and I had all of my equipment in IKEA bags. It was super heavy and the rain was frozen. It was like pelting my hands. And I was like, I can make it one more block, like crying, because I couldn't afford a taxi to like go to my commercial kitchen to bake. So I was like carrying all of my equipment, IKEA bags from the subway. Like there's a lot of, and like everything that can go wrong does go wrong. I've ordered, shipping boxes that got delayed from China and then desperately needed them. And then finally they arrived. On the day they arrived, it was raining. So when they were delivered, they were all wet and destroyed.
Ugh.
Yeah. Like if it can go, like just once you get the distributor, that's a big, huge hurdle to get
Mhm.
past. And it takes years. It took me years, but then you realize the distributor becomes your problem. Distribution is absolutely the hardest part. Making the product is the easy part. Selling the product is relatively easy. Getting the product from point A to point B is the hard
Hmm.
part.
You heard of these things called food hubs? Are you familiar with those?
No.
So food hubs are a growing thing in the US. They're mostly right now focused on aggregating product from organic farms. So like I know they're all over the country. So basically they'll get 60 to 100 farmers, aggregate everything, and then resell into a Whole Foods or whatever your local grocery store is, or the chefs, those kind of things. So that's definitely growing. I mean, just something to look into from a distribution standpoint.
Yeah, no, that sounds fantastic. I mean, or even just one of the things about being in Manhattan is like none of our food is made here. Most of our fruits and vegetables come from Mexico.
Mexico,
Yeah.
New
If
York grows a
you,
lot of good products. I mean, that's why when I asked you that earlier, I mean, they do
not
more
year
than,
round.
well, not year
So
round. No,
during
yes.
strawberry season, our strawberries are from California,
Hmm.
but strawberries in the winter time are from Mexico. If you look at the produce and if you actually read where it's from, in our grocery stores, the majority of the produce is coming from Mexico.
See, we've been in
Well, I don't know if
Northeast.
he gets Mexico. Mexico is
I've got nothing against
America's.
Mexico either, but the problem with that is that the farther it travels, the less nutrients the product has, especially
Agreed.
on fruits
Yeah.
and vegetables.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So
you
when it's
know,
strawberry season, I'm like, wow, that strawberry is amazing. It's because it came from California. I was picked a week ago.
exactly. Yeah, we
Yeah.
went to LA. I don't know. I've been disappointed. I've been to LA twice this year. I've been disappointed by their food scene, to be honest. When I asked you a question about gluten and kind of the restaurants, I don't know. We had more difficulty in LA than we have in Cleveland finding
Wow.
what we want, what we were looking to eat for.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I don't have too much trouble in New York, though I live here, so I know that. But there's a lot of, I mean, there's restaurants who only do everything is gluten free in
yeah,
New York.
yeah, same here.
To a lot of like, we have the ability to, we have a lot of different type of ethnic foods, and a lot of ethnic foods are
Hmm.
naturally gluten free. Like a
Yeah.
lot of any culture that's a more of a corn based culture is going to have a lot of gluten free options on the menu. A
Hmm.
lot of Asian restaurants, you say hold the soy sauce, and in New York they bring you the gluten free soy sauce.
Yeah.
Are going to be a rice based culture. Greek food is a fantastic gluten free option
Hmm.
always because they don't do a lot of sauces, so it's all, a lot of fresh vegetables, rice, and meat. So yeah, I don't usually have too much trouble. San Francisco, I think, has a good scene.
San Francisco does. I don't know. I'm just down in LA right now from a food standpoint. So it's just,
Yeah,
maybe it's just me.
yeah, I don't go to LA that often.
So, food, you're eating healthy because of celiac, but a
Yeah.
lot of people are not. What advice can you give people? I mean, long term, you're going to have a longer life because you're
Mhm.
eating healthier. I mean, there's
Yep.
there's a lot of benefits besides what we've talked about so far. So what are your just thoughts around health and longevity and what products you're
Yeah,
making as well as food?
I always ate healthy, but I didn't. Celiac disease really opened my eyes to how connected my immune system is to my digestive system.
Hmm.
And the foods you put into your digestive system impact your digestion, which then impacts your immune system. So, what you eat is not just satiating you and giving you energy, it's also impacting the quality of your hair, the quality of your skin, how quickly you recover from illnesses, things like swelling. And if you're getting older like me, I'm now 43 and I'm noticing my joints are not nearly as young as they used to be. What you eat is also going to impact the swelling and inflammation in your
Hmm.
bones. And when you start to eat better and you start eliminating things that cause inflammation, like gluten and things like artificial flavorings and fillers and things, you're going to find that walking is easier. You're going to find that you get recover from the cold faster. You're going to find that any bloating or indigestion you have is going to go away. Your skin is going to look clearer. Like all of these things are
Hmm.
directly correlated to what you're eating.
Couldn't agree more. And I interviewed a gentleman. He makes skincare products, healthy, clean
Mhm.
skincare products. He said what he makes affects about 10% of what your skin does. 90% is affected by what you put into your body, not what you
Mhm.
put onto your body.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely. Which is why I've always loved salad is like when I eat something that is has a lot of natural, like it's just the crispness and the fact that
mhm,
it is so hydrating. Whenever I'm hydrating myself through food as well, I just feel so much better.
yeah, absolutely. So, first step, if somebody wanted to kind of get into I'll say the consumer packaged goods business, you kind of came up with a lot of, you get kicked in the face every day
Yeah, yeah.
comments. But
Hmm.
if somebody actually wanted to get into this space, because I think there's a lot of opportunity. I mean,
Hmm.
what would you recommend as like a first step?
Yeah, and I was really deliberate about it. I'd worked in finance, I worked in private wealth. I've seen a lot of people start their own companies from scratch. I'd also seen, fundraising and how that works and getting investors and things like that. And I didn't want to be a part of any of that. I really deliberately, because if you get an investor, they're going to want to have a lot of control. And they're
Yeah.
going to, if you get someone who's a seasoned professional, which is great because they have a lot of experience, they're going to say, this is how we did it X, Y, and Z years ago. And the world is changing so quickly and so
Yeah.
dramatically that experience, A, is probably, sorry, boomers, dated. And B, you're doing something new. You're doing something that is hopefully disruptive. So you don't want to do it the way it had been done. You want to do
Hmm.
it new. And so I really deliberately started really, really small, and I wanted to be the one baking my product. I wanted to be the one working with the machinery and understanding, because it's not just like creating a recipe at home is one thing. Once you go to commercial facility, now you're talking about 600-pound batches. And what worked in your, KitchenAid mixer does not work in a 600-pound commercial mixing machine. Just so you know that. It does not work. And so I wanted to be the one solving those problems and understanding the product. So I started really, really small so that I had total control over the ingredients, over the process, over the troubleshooting, over the mechanics of everything, so that I knew it better than anyone else. And so that when I did start getting money and investors and hiring people, I am formidable. I don't meet many people who know more about what I do than me. Even my co-packer, who is a certified food scientist, a Columbia MBA, who makes millions of cookies, a month. I know more about gluten-free baking than he ever will. And he there's because it's so different. He's like, he won't bake unless I'm there. He's like, if something goes wrong, you need to be here, because what we would do to fix it with wheat doesn't work with gluten free.
Right.
So, but I know how to fix it because I've done it so many times. And so that would be my advice. Is that I've met a lot of people who tell me they're experts about things, and then I question them and they know absolutely nothing. It is unbelievable how many experts there are out there in the world, especially when you're starting something new and you're a little bit insecure and you don't know which way is up and down. I want you to know that if anyone tells you they know what they're doing and they're really overconfident about it, they are just overconfident. Just figure it out, make mistakes. The best thing you can do, because you are innovating, you're probably making something that hasn't been done before, something that you're doing better. Because you're innovating, people haven't figured it out before, and they're probably threatened by the fact that you're trying to figure it out. And so they may be offering you advice that is not necessarily intended to help you. I encountered that a lot. And you just have confidence and make your mistakes and do it yourself. Start off slow and small. And then once you really start to understand things, you start to when you are ready, when you can anticipate things are going to happen. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
When you know it so well that oh, X, Y, and Z just happened, so this is going to happen next. That's when you're ready to grow and take the next step.
Well, it sounds like you were talking about earlier. Have a plan A, plan B, plan C in case something,
Yep.
because it's going to happen.
Yep. Absolutely. And I mean, I have a team of people who have over 30 years experience, and they're incredibly helpful to me. And they have they've seen so many things and have really added a lot to my skill set, because they've seen things that I would never even have imagined. But every single day we still deal with things that none of us are someone who's been in the industry for over 30 years, worked with companies from Walmart all the way down to is I've never dealt with this before. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
Nice. So I think I mentioned before we started taping. So we did this little, we have a Sunday dinner every other week. My family comes over. So you were kind enough to send some samples of your cookies. And my wife actually made up a little sheet
Great.
with the list of
Very
all the
scientific.
cookies. We ranked them 1 to 4. So I don't know how this stacks up. There are 8 adults and a 7-year-old. So the number one cookie that our family liked was salted peanut butter cookie by a margin of almost 2 to 1.
Wow.
And then second was the oatmeal coconut, which I believe is your bestseller from what I read.
It is my bestseller, yes.
Yeah. And then tied for third, so they were both the same, was a brown butter shortbread and the brown butter chocolate chip. So
an excellent assortment. So I often, people will ask me when I'm at trade shows and I have samples and I have 7 cookies and a brownie for them to try, they'll be like, what's your favorite? And I can never answer that question because they're all my favorite. I made them all. But I ask them this one question. I say, you're a chocolate, vanilla, or peanut butter person. That will tell you which one you should try. If you're a chocolate person, you should definitely try the double Dutch or the brownie. If you're a vanilla person, definitely the brown butter or the shortbread, because they're really intense. We put double the amount of vanilla in everything, and that brown butter sort of really amplifies the vanilla. The brown butter is sort of like a butterscotch flavor, and the butterscotch for the vanilla is it's like crack. It's unbelievable. And then, but if you are a peanut person, this is the most important. If you are a peanut butter person, that peanut butter cookie only has 5 ingredients, and it is about 40% peanut butter.
Well, I love peanut butter, and I know I voted for that one.
Yeah, so. Yeah. So if you are a peanut butter person, that is definitely going to be, and it's so soft and chewy and moist and delicious and satisfying and salty and sweet and all of the things. So if you are a peanut butter person, that's going to be your top choice, I promise.
Yeah.
But yes, oatmeal coconut, which people have chocolate chip is the number one cookie in America. We're America. We're a chocolate chip nation,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I have two chocolate chip flavors, and they are number two and number three. But my number one is the oatmeal coconut cookie, which is a 100-year-old recipe from my wife's side of the family. Whole Foods had asked me if I could make them a vegan, gluten-free cookie, and I was like, "You want me to bake without flour, butter, or eggs?" I'm not even a baker. I'm like I work in finance. Like I am not Houdini. I cannot make you a wonderful.
You don't have a chemistry degree?
Yeah, I don't have a chemistry degree. I'm not a certified food scientist. And just so you know, the holy trinity of baking is butter, flour, and eggs.
Mm.
That's what makes baking. Um, so I was like, if Whole Food asks you, you got it. I was like, I guess so. I guess so. I'll try. And my mother in law served me these cookies for Christmas, and I never knew I needed coconut and oatmeal together. That's not something that I would have like dreamed up on my own. And I was like, that
Mhm.
cookie is insane. It's buttery, it's salty, it's sweet, it's exotic from the coconut. I was like, I have to make this because the coconut will provide body to
Mhm.
replace the fact that we don't have any eggs, and it became my best selling cookie.
Nice.
It was so successful that I now have 4 vegan flavors because I was like cracked the code on how to sort of create a vegan gluten-free cookie, and I was like, it's so good. Let me see if I can make more. And so I now have 4 flavors that are vegan and gluten-free and better, I think, than the original versions.
Hmm. Nice. So that leads us to my final question, which is about a recipe that you can share
Yeah,
to our viewers that's relatively easy to make, relatively inexpensive, and
yeah. Easy and inexpensive. And I'm glad that you said that. One of the challenges I think that people who have a family member that is gluten free is that the products on the market are not that great. And then
Mhm.
baking gluten free is unbelievably challenging because you have to think about wheat as a technology.
Mm.
And wheat is both soft, it can be both sweet and savory, it can be both tough like sourdough, it can be soft and tender like angel food cake, and it can do all of those things just one ingredient, and it's just one ingredient, and you can make all of these things from pizza crust to angel food cake to anything. And it's an unbelievable technology. When you remove that technology, it makes baking so much more challenging. And so so we can plug my product now. I'm now selling my flour blend that I spent years developing and that we work directly with mills in California to manufacture for us. So if you are having trouble baking, it's not you, it's the flour blend, I promise you. I had months and months and thousands of cookies that were failures until I created a flour blend that actually works. So this will work. It's 1 for 1. You can use it in anything. It's also good flour is actually very expensive. The only company that I consider my competition when it comes to flour, their bags of flour cost $16.99 to $19.99. Mine is $8.99 and it's
Mm.
often on sale. So it is going to be a lot more affordable for you and it's going to work. And you can use it for anything. The advice I would give people who are baking gluten free is add some maple syrup or honey or any type of agave nectar, like 1 or 2 teaspoons to your recipe. That moisture is going to really help the end product. So if you're making gluten-free cookies and you're just using this flour and you're making the Nestle Toll House recipe, add a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons of maple syrup or agave or whatever you want. It's
Mm.
going to make the end product so much better. So we have the recipe on the back of our bag for pancakes. We make this recipe every single weekend with my 3.5-year-old. She absolutely loves pancakes, she calls them pancakes. And then we put either chocolate chips in them or we put organic sprinkles, which make them super fun because then it's more like funfetti pancakes for a 3.5-year-old. And the recipe is super easy. It's a cup of our all purpose flour. And then the recipe calls for a tablespoon of baking powder. That's going to make a super fluffy pancake, super fluffy, like an inch thick, which is super fun. So if you want a more traditional pancake, do like a half teaspoon to a teaspoon of baking powder. You
Okay.
can, whatever thickness you want. And then 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, because that is the secret ingredient when you're baking anything that is gluten free is maple syrup. 2 tablespoons of melted butter, any type of oil that you want. Can be coconut oil, olive oil, canola oil, anything you want. You can also leave it out if you don't want to. But it does, we actually add a whole milk powder to this recipe because any dairy is going to help with the baking process. Then it's 1 egg, a teaspoon of vanilla, a quarter teaspoon of salt, and a 3/4 cup of milk. And that's it. All
Okay.
things you have in the pantry, you just need this and then you mix it all up and put it on the pan and add some sprinkles. Another tip I would say is double the vanilla. Vanilla is just delicious. It makes everything taste better. And if it calls for 1 teaspoon, I always put in 2.
And now we're educated on vanilla, how to buy vanilla too.
Yeah, yeah. If you want your vanilla to taste better, buy natural vanilla flavor that's gluten-free, kosher, and non-GMO certified. I'm telling you, it'll be the best thing you ever tasted, and it'll last longer.
Nice. Well,
And
thanks,
that's it.
Carolyn. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for sharing the recipe, and good luck with your company.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. Can I tell people where they could buy my product?
Absolutely. Go for it.
So yeah, so you can buy us on a bunch of retailers. We're in HEB in Texas. We're in specialty and independent stores all over the U.S. But if you can't find us in your local grocery store, you can go to Mightylicious.com. We ship to all 50 states. If you buy 3 bags or more, shipping is free. You can buy our
Hmm.
flours, you can buy our cookies, you can buy our brownie mix online. You can also find us on Amazon.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a
Easy to
pleasure.
find you. All right. Have a great rest of your day, Carolyn. Thank
You
you.
too. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
As I mentioned a few minutes ago, my sponsor is Cleveland Kitchen, the leader in fresh fermented foods. Try Cleveland Kitchen's crunchy and delicious krauts, kimchi, and pickles, packed with probiotics to support your gut health while elevating your meals from ordinary to extraordinary. Cleveland Kitchen, where taste meets wellness. Find it in the produce or deli section of your local grocery store or visit clevelandkitchen.com for more information. And please follow the show every week where you listen to podcasts or on YouTube. Leave comments below or on my website, Eat Better Food Today.